So while I'm getting set to share my screen, I just wanted to say thank you so much. It's really a pleasure being here with FOSTIIMA and with all you folks. It is very exciting. It is a great new world that all of us are entering in exciting times. But so one of the things is why one finds invitations like this, which are so prestigious, to come in where someone wants you to speak on something. There are two reasons why it makes it very exciting. One is, it gets one to think, introspect, put some thoughts together, and therefore you learn a little bit more about what you're wanting to talk about, or you learn a little bit more about yourself. But most importantly, when you're talking to students like yourselves, I end up learning much more than and taking out much more from every session. So that's why it's really exciting to be here with you today. Let me just get started and share my screen, and just let me know if you folks can see this screen coming up.
Yes, we can.
Okay, fantastic. So what I wanted to talk about is, and we'll touch upon it in a few different sections. But this is probably one of, and you may not have initially thought of it as an exciting time to do an MBA. What the heck, COVID has come, now everything is changed, and etc. etc. But the fact is that things are changing, and if you read as much as you, I'm sure, must be reading about what's happening, it's not as if everything is going down the toilet. There are lots of opportunities that are coming up. Lots of people are thinking about things totally differently. Lots of things that were kept on the back burner are now coming up front. And really, this is a time more than anything else, which is all about creativity and innovation. And really, it's about your life and how you are going to change the world. So this is an amazing time to be doing an MBA and doing it at FOSTIIMA, where you will, I'm sure, learn a lot from your co-workers and your faculty and other folks, and all the experiences that you'll go through. So without further ado, I just want to say that if you look at this, we don't choose our parents. We don't choose the planet where we are born or the year of our birth, but we thrive. Look at that little plant over there. That seed got chucked onto the road somewhere. There was a crack, and out sprouted a little shoot. Yeah. And it didn't say, hey, you know what, I wish I was in the forest, or I wish I was in this fertile soil. It doesn't know otherwise. But wherever it is, it's got its roots going and it's thriving. It's as green as can be. And some other trees. You could be a tree, covered with snow, and he said, yeah, I didn't want this sort of a climate. Or you're in a desert, but you're still thriving. You are a beacon of hope to a lot of people. And it's all sand around, no water, but somehow or the other, you are surviving, or you're on a rock and you've got a great view, but and everyone's looking up, or you've been born in a place that is so incredibly windy, you've been blown onto one side and that's how you are, but you're still thriving. So, it's not about the cards that are dealt to you and me, because we don't choose any of those things. But whatever cards are dealt, we make a fantastic life and we have a great time at it. Because we could otherwise choose to be any one of these trees. But do you know who they are? Does it stand out at all? Do you want to be an average person whom no one remembers? Or do you want to stand out? And I think you folks have come to and are joining up with FOSTIIMA to make sure you stand out in the crowd and you be a fantastic tree that everyone will look up to, no matter where you are, no matter where you're working, no matter what the conditions are, because life is really all about adaptation. And I think that's one thing that you will definitely take out from your next couple of years as you go through your MBA, go through different experiences. You heard one of your erstwhile seniors, I think, talk about the different experiences that they've had at the institute, and organizing things and celebrating different sorts of festivals and occasions. And some of us, particularly in the first semester, we may be doing things remotely, and it's going to be a little different. But you folks are starting off your careers on a new track. Can you imagine what it's like for a 45-year-old, for a 55-year-old, or for a 65-year-old? Because they're saying, man, we don't understand this system. How do we change tracks? But you guys are exceedingly adaptive. You are all about the present. So this is the time for you to thrive. And so let me just talk a little bit about COVID. Yeah. So certain industries, of course, are hit harder than others. But it's also got people to appreciate what we have. And very often you say that, okay, you know what, I think I can really be happy with X or Y because that's what I have. And I'm not really looking at something else that is superfluous. And then you start thinking about what is really much more meaningful to you. What can I do? What jobs are there? What opportunities are there? You've already started operating remotely. Lots of us started operating remotely once in a while when we were in jobs which required us to travel, so you had to be remote, or some of us work from home sometimes, but now we're being forced to work from home, which is quite different. But it's also enabling things. I'm sitting here in Singapore, you guys are sitting there in Delhi, and maybe in your bedroom or on a desk or whatever, but you know, it's pretty comfortable. And so I'm not spending money and time and effort on a flight and going there, and you guys are not commuting to your institute. And so, you know, there are quite a lot of advantages about remote working too. You folks are much more digital than say guys like us were, or guys 20 years your senior were. You got, and now people are also realizing that now, having worked from home for 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, you're beginning to realize some positives about working from home, working remotely, and looking at those. Then there are new jobs that are being created in lots of industries, which, I mean, Zoom and everything digital for one is a huge space. And you say, but that is only the digital space. But digital is life. It's whether it's shopping, whether it's entertainment, whether it's gaming, whether it's communication. 80% of things get taken care of digitally. Yes, I can't physically travel digitally. Yes, I can't physically shake your hands digitally. But we can still connect. We can still become friends. We can still become business partners. We can still big deals, small deals, whatever it is. We can still make sales. There's a guy who used to work for me as an office assistant for about 10 years. He was from Bihar, and he had started then working with a real estate agency. And about 2 months ago, he had got married. His wife was expecting, and 2 months ago, from Gurgaon, he moved to Bihar, back to his hometown. He said my wife has her delivery there, and it's just safer. So I called him and asked him, so how are you managing? How's work for you? He says, no, there's no problem. I am on WhatsApp with all my clients, and one deal is likely to go through, etc., etc. So, you know, that is the amazing benefit and the power of technology, power of communication, power of today, that sometimes we take for granted, or sometimes we don't realize that this is an opportunity really. And we see that, oh, shucks, will this company come for placement or not? Different companies will come for placement. Different jobs will be available for placement. And you will be different people in the next 2 years. And that is where the opportunity is. Since COVID is obviously a hot word at the moment, you may have also heard of SARS. Now, SARS, when it happened in Hong Kong and southeastern China, it really was the thing that got e-commerce to boom. And from there, although that was pretty localized, it then grew, and then e-commerce became kind of the de facto kind of mantra for a lot of companies, but it was still relatively small. But it got off to a critical mass and a start. With COVID, there are things where people are beginning to get significantly more planet focused. The planet is warming, there is deforestation, there is so much pollution. I mean, Delhi was the most polluted city in the world for so long, etc., etc. And then all of a sudden, with 1 month of shutdown, in the first month of shutdown, blue skies in Delhi. The birds are coming to, flamingos are coming into Navi Mumbai for their nesting in much greater numbers than earlier. Every part of the world was seeing a dramatic change, and nitrogen dioxide footprint over China was zero for some months. And guys were saying, and we've been wanting this sort of a situation. All the folks who are worried about the planet warming, saying, unfortunately, this is not the way for that to happen. But we also realize that it's brought people together of different sorts of locations and geographies. We all realize that we are in one small world. We're all in this together. So there's a great chance for COVID now to be spawning a lot of planet-related or planet-focused kind of industries. Clean energy, solar energy, wind energy, automated cars, electric cars, different sorts of things which we earlier would have said, hey, that's a good idea, but it's going to take another 30 years. Now the 30 years is happening, all of that is being compressed in 1 year, and that's the year you're doing an MBA. So really for me, you guys are a lucky chosen sort of batch. So over the next couple of years, it'll be important to see, and you'll keep reading and seeing about what's happening that is new. Which new industries are coming up? What new jobs are coming up? How do I reskill? How do I move there, right? And the new normal is really all about uncertainty. And things are going to be uncertain, probably, and that's the new normal, because today it is COVID. You could have another thing happening in another 2 years, not another 100 years later. So how do you become adaptive? How do you build that self-confidence that kuch bhi ho jaye, I'm going to be able to do it, right? That's what is really important. And that is where creativity and innovation come in. And that's what we're going to just talk about. So if you look at creativity, it's all about imagining. And you could be, it could be an idea, it could be an art, you could be writing, you could be painting, you could be writing poetry, or you could be doing photography, or it could be a hobby, or just a thought and you're thinking about something, but it's all creative and it's all about the imagination. And that's like a seed, that's like the beginning of something that's different, right? And what does it lead to, and what does it require? It probably leads to a new approach of something, a new way of doing something, or doing something differently, viewing something from a different angle. If you ever, I mean, you folks have seen the Taj Mahal many times. If you just do a Google and say, look at overhead images of famous places, you'll see images of the Taj Mahal, Rashtrapati Bhavan, or Eiffel Tower, or Mount Everest from right on top. And you'll wonder, what the heck is this? But when you see it from your eye level, you say, oh, of course, this is the Taj Mahal. I mean, what do you mean? How can I not know this? But when you look at it from on top, it's a different angle. So as soon as you see something very familiar from a different angle, you start beginning, you may have heard this phrase, think out of the box. That's what it's about. You've got a problem, the door is closed, you want to go to the other side. You go and you try the handle, the door is locked. Okay. Then you think, okay, maybe there's the key, and you try a couple of keys don't work. And then maybe you sit down and say, okay, the door is locked. I've tried to open it. There's no possibility. Or you maybe will bang on the door and try to shout and say, hey, is anyone there? Can you open it? Or maybe you'll make a phone call. So you'll do many different things. Your objective is still the same. It's to get out of the door, out of the room beyond the door. So you just got to look at different ways of achieving your objective. Your objective remains the same, but if you face a stumbling block with one kind of approach, you'll try another one. You'll ask for help. You'll call someone on the phone and say, hey, and I'm locked in this room and I'm in room 302. Can you please open it? They'll say, yeah, no problem. I'll get the person with the master key and they'll open it. So you look at different ways to get out of an issue, and you'll see how something can be done differently. Yeah. So that's a little bit theoretical, well, hopefully not too theoretical, but that's what creativity is. It's all about the imagination and stuff like that. Yeah, and it's important for you to be curious. Why is this happening? How does this happen? This and that and the other, and then you get that creative spark. Yeah. What is innovation? Innovation is relatively similar, but it's more about doing something, about putting something together, about creating and developing and implementing something, but the spark is probably coming out from some creative idea, or you've got a very broad vision and you're trying to solve something. So if you look at, brands such as Apple or Android or iTunes or Uber, they're all very innovative kind of businesses and brands, and they obviously started off with maybe a little bit of a creative idea in terms of creating a new Macintosh or a new PC or a new phone. But then they also had a big architecture of, okay, there'll be this software called iOS. There'll be iTunes we'll bring in later, and we'll do this, that, and the other. And then it becomes a big kind of a network, right? So that's one way of doing things, but it's more really about doing. So what do you need to do? Just keep asking why. Why is this being done this way? Why is this the best way to do something? Is there a better way? Is there a different way? Is there a new way? And given that COVID has come, everyone is trying to find out answers to why. How do I do this better? How do I do this from my house, because I can no longer go to the office? Hotels are saying, how can I make my hotel building profitable? And what do I do? So then hotels are looking at different sorts of business models altogether, which are not necessarily hotel and entertainment related. Or new hotels are thinking of saying, hey, you know what? I don't want to have 1,000-bed hotel, but I want to have 110-bed hotels, because then it'll be more, but it'll also be more premium, it'll be more exclusive, so I could actually make more money in some ways. But people are just beginning to think differently and then see what works. Yeah. So creativity and innovation really are about you. It's also something that is every day. It's not something that you say, okay, you know what, on the weekend, I'm going to be creative. Saturday, I'll be creative. And Sunday, I'll be innovative. And Monday to Friday, I have to slog like crazy. So it's really more about the whole thing. You've got to be living, eating, and breathing this the whole time. So let me just talk about a few small examples of trying to bring this down to earth and saying you don't have to be some rocket scientist, or you don't have to be a huge celebrity to get into innovation and creativity. you've already done many of these things. In some shape or form, you've been dramatically creative, you've been dramatically innovative. And let me tell you about one which I would say maybe was my COVID moment. When I was with Hindustan Lever in one of my early jobs there, I was an area manager in Pune in a cattle and poultry feed business. That was my first job after my training. And I said, I know nothing about animal nutrition. I have come to a plant that is just coming out of a 6-month strike. The workers don't trust anyone. They were a little militant and teed off. The customers were disappointed because they said, what did we do? All our poultry got affected on our poultry farm, or our cattle got affected in our cattle farms. The distributors had lost trust in us. It was in shambles. But there was a labor agreement that had been signed, and that was the only positive thing I went into this place with. So it was a loss-making unit, but it was an erstwhile profit-making unit. So I had to do a fair amount of things over there. What we did was I first said, okay, the workers are teed off with us and they don't really trust us and all that. We got to rebuild trust. So poultry feed and cattle feed is packed in gunny bags, 60 kilos and 75 kilo gunny bags. So what I said is, we won't do anything at the moment. Our factory is just yet to open, but we'll organize a picnic with all the workers. And so the plant in charge said, but sir, I don't think they will agree and all that. Will want to go. I said, yeah, just tell them it's going to be a fun outing and we'll have some games and all that. And we'll have a bus organized, so we'll all go together. And we'll have some food. Food is obviously very important. So they all came. We got the gunny bags out, and then we had a sack race. And it was, so one guy was the cattle, some guy was the cattle feed team, some guy was the poultry feed team. And you should have seen these workers have a blast. They were like 5-year-old kids again, and then they were like cheering each other and booing the other teams, etc., etc. So they came out pretty well. Then they came and hugged each other, and they hugged all the plant, the supervisory team there, and we all came back from the picnic as friends. Right. So then we said that, what? We used to be the #1 unit in the Hindustan Lever cattle and poultry feed business. Pune used to be the #1 unit. Now we are the number 12. We are the last unit now. So what do we do to get back? Then they came up with suggestions. We will do this and we will do that, and we will make sure that, we are regular and on time and all that. So they got that trust and pride back in them because they were part of the decision making. Then we went to some of our customers whom we had lost. And we said, we will have a cattle feed competition and a poultry feed competition. So when you go with a broiler, that's the chicken that you eat, he said, well, how much is the weight gain that the chicken can get in 8 weeks' time? Because that was when the chicken was then sold to the trader. And whoever gets the maximum weight gain, they will get an award. So same thing with cattle feed. What is the maximum amount of milk you can get out of your herd of cows, and then you'll get an award. So there was then a little bit of excitement, a little bit of getting back some trust with the customers, both in the cattle feed and the poultry feed area, right? Then we went to the distributors. Distributors said, we have lost a lot of money and this and that. Okay, now you come and you're saying that things will be better and all that. But obviously their faith was a bit shattered. So once we convinced them that these things are happening and customers are saying that, hey, it's good to buy more of this poultry feed, we said we'll have a distributor competition, sales contest. So everyone has sales contests. But what I asked my sales guys to do is we had about only 5 or 7 distributors at that time. It was a small area and it was quite focused. So he said, we'll have a contest where we will, obviously the distributor has to win the contest, but the prize is a silk sari. And we will be giving the results on a weekly basis to their wives. So, so it was the salesman's job to give the weekly tally. Your husband now is in number 3 place, and etc. etc. So we sent out a weekly or a fortnightly sort of typed out note to these 7 wives. So saying if your husband achieves the target, they'll get an alarm clock. But if they come first, if this one comes first, then you get a silk sari. And if you come second, then you get some toaster or something. So, after 3 weeks, one of the distributors called and said, "That I will sell whatever you want to have sold, but please stop sending any letters to my wife because she's saying, well, you are number 5. I need that silk sari, etc., etc." So it became quite a fun thing. And then we started writing articles in the local. There's a Poultry Times and there was a Milk Times out of Bombay and Pune. So getting a little bit of stature for the Hindustan Lever animal feeds business, that we're talking knowledgeably about something that the farmers have to do, etc., etc. So what did I learn out of this? It was my first job. I was just 23 years old at that time when I had gone into Pune and face this thing. So it got me to ask a lot of questions, ask why, try to understand why this had happened, etc., etc., and then ask why not, and see what we can do. But most importantly, also because one was young and foolish and fearless, you say, okay, at best what's going to happen, the guys are not going to buy our feed. It doesn't matter, right? That's not the way I would look at it today. For a current business, but when you're young in your first job, you can do a lot of stuff that other guys will not do, which is again how you guys are going to be in a fantastic place. From levers, I moved to Nestle, and there was this Maggi hot and sweet tomato tea sauce which was there. We were in the tomato sauce market or tomato ketchup market, highly commoditized. It was quite a boring category. Maggi had its tomato sauce. Kisan at that time was a separate company, not under Unilever. So that was the market leader, and it had a thick sauce and all that. Maggi sauces was just about scraping the bottom of the barrel, just about making a break even. This tomato chili sauce that came out had a slightly higher margin, but it was also different. It was tasty and all that, and we tried to get different people to describe the taste and all that. And we said, we are a loss-making sort of unit. What do we do inexpensively? We barely have any marketing budget. And we went with our agency, that was J. Walter Thompson, or HTA, it was called at that time. And they said, what we could do is to get Prahlad Kakkar, a good ad film guy out of Bombay, and Piyush Pandey, who then became a major ad guru, but he was like at HTA, and he happened to be a few batches my senior from college. So we chatted and said, yeah, but all this Bollywood and all that is going to cost a bomb. How do we do this? So Piyush and Prahlad Kakkar got kind of quite excited about what we could do on a shoestring budget. So they said, yeah, you don't worry. We'll do something on a shoestring budget and we'll try to make it fun because this category is very boring and this sauce will stand out, right? So that's what they did. I'm just going to, my screen will probably go blank a bit. But what they did was they came back with a set of, that they said, we'll do it at a shoestring sort of a budget and we'll make this thing different. So I don't know if you guys have seen this, but I just Googled and got a couple of these old ads. So I just wanted to play that for you for a couple of minutes.
It's different.
क्या हुआ बॉस?
साहब में भी वही कम्बा का टमाटर का सास।
सॉस नहीं बॉस, मैगी हॉट एंड स्वीट टोमेटो चिली सॉस. It's different. बॉस, बॉस.
बॉस.
मैगी हॉट.
Sweet and
थोड़ी ही देर हिंदुस्तान के बॉर्डर से दूर बर्मिंघम पहुंच जाएगा. माइकल, तुम साइकिल पर वहां. सारा शहर मुझे लॉयन के नाम से जानता है और तुम ये कम्बा का टमाटर का सास खाते हो.
It's Maggi hot and sweet tomato chili sauce. It's different.
मैं तुमसे आखिरी बार पूछता हूँ, ये कम्बा का डिफरेंट क्या है?
This sauce is different, boss.
Lily, don't be silly.
Maggi hot and sweet. Enjoy the difference.
भाई गेम है तो टेनिस, क्लास, ये मौसम, ये क्राउड.
Maggi hot and sweet tomato chili sauce. It's different.
It's different, it's different. तेरे पास और कोई वर्ड नहीं है क्या?
है.
क्या?
अलग है.
कोई मुझे प्लीज बता दे कि मैगी हॉट एंड स्वीट टमाटो चिली सॉस का टेस्ट क्या है?
Maggi hot and sweet.
पेशेंट को क्या हुआ?
इनकी मेमोरी खो गई है.
मेमोरी? जावेद भाई, मैं पंकज. याद है? पार्क, बेंच, फिल्म, 100 दिन सॉस के, टेनिस मैच, स्विमिंग पूल. नहीं? आपको याद आया?
टमाटर का सॉस.
सॉस नहीं, मैगी हॉट एंड स्वीट टोमेटो चिली सॉस. इट्स डिफरेंट. गया.
ये कैसी चाल?
इस सॉस का कमाल. इट्स डिफरेंट.
Maggi hot and sweet. Enjoy
So
the
that was a
difference.
bunch of ads that these guys did, and they did 6 of them, which was at the price of. And my colleague at who was managing Maggi Noodles, they said, these 6 ads have cost you less than what one of our film ads has cost. So it was kind of really interesting. What it got is to make the category kind of interesting and got this particular sauce to stand out like crazy. The market share of this sauce kind of trebled and quadrupled. And then later on, it's different spread towards the whole Maggi sauce range, not just about the tomato chili sauce. So very often winning is not about having more money. It's more importantly about being creative, taking a risk, taking a chance. And sometimes you haven't really necessarily thought about it as a strategy. You've just been forced into it. Your back is to the wall. You don't have money. Your margins are dying. But this one little thing has some difference in it. And when you're pushed to the bottom, I guess you sometimes then come up with a creative solution. And that's what I learned out of this particular situation. From Nestle, I went to a pretty small company, a company in the garments and goods business. They were into casual wear. And they were basically an export company, a very successful garment export company. But they had a very small domestic business. And it was a loss-making business. So it was called Smash T-shirts. They were basically into making T-shirts. So they said, okay, we'd like you to come in and see how you can turn around this business. So then I came in, we did a few exciting things with the T-shirts and sweatshirts and made it a little more premium and all that. And then we said that, T-shirts is particularly summer T-shirt is a highly seasonal business. So you sell for 6 months and then you're stuck for 6 months. So he said, we got to make it a more all-round thing, etc., etc. And we got into jeans. And he said, we'll make these jeans really comfortable. And I said, just like Levi's, they're pretty classic in their cuts, in their washes. It's not totally funky and it doesn't keep changing all the time, etc., etc., different washes. And we said, we'll make it really comfortable and we need to get an iconic figure to match. And then the guy who owned this small company, he said, a friend of mine knows Zakir Hussain, the tabla maestro. I said, wow, if you could get him, that'd be fantastic. But I said, our budget is like hopeless. So again, how do we do it? So So then we tried to get our agency to speak to him and said, next time. He used to come into Bombay quite often, once or twice a year. And he was staying in LA that time. Maybe he still is. So they said, okay, next time you come, we would love to have you do some exciting stuff and model. He was at that time, of course, modeling for Taj Tea. And we said, we are a small brand and all that, but we'd love to get you to check out our t-shirts and jeans in particular. And that's where we coined this tagline of saying, slip into comfort, slip into style. And we had Zakir Hussain coming to try out these jeans. And I spent probably my most fun 2 days at his house, at his dad's place, Allah Rakha's house in Hyderabad estate in Bombay, where we were doing some photography there and in Juhu. So they said, don't play the tabla. We gave him 2 coconuts. And then on the coconuts, he'll play the tabla. And we had some great fun. And it was a great set of shoots because he's also really a fun guy. And so this is a thing that I just picked up from Google, which says, but it's dated originally 1992. So that was when the shoot really happened with Zakir Hussain. And he flew down from Paris at that time, and he said he also lug out his little marketing line saying they are comfortable, and he wears smashed jeans even otherwise. So really anything is possible. You have to really be willing to dream and pursue it, and not give up at the first go. Because if you give up at the first go, you're like the other 70% of the people. But if you're coming to FOSTIIMA, you're not part of those 70%. You're part of the rest of the 30% who make things happen. And so you will pursue stuff. So you say, what is your dream? And maybe you've not thought about it. That's absolutely fine. I'm approaching 60 and what's my dream? I say, hey, I'm still kind of dreaming and thinking and what should I do, etc., etc. So it's not easy to have a fixed goal of what you want to do, but some people are blessed. And some of my friends, when I was in the 10th standard, they knew they wanted to be a doctor and they knew they wanted to be a lawyer or something. And I said, that's fantastic. I still don't know what I want to do or what I want to be. And, in some ways that's liberating, but, I think it's good to have a dream and pursue it. And because when you start pursuing a dream, then it starts opening up new doors and you say, hey, you know what? I think this is also an exciting thing to do. So see what your dream is all about and are you willing to pursue it? Then from Smash T-shirts, which was a brand of this company called Apigo, I joined Motorola. Motorola in India, and you guys will probably not know what a pager is. That's what I was coming in as the marketing head for. And you probably may not know what Motorola is because Motorola has also gone downhill over the last 10 odd years. But if you do recall Motorola and a thin phone of theirs called Razr, that was the same company and it's now called brand Moto more than Motorola, and it's part of Lenovo as a company. But when they were launching in India, again, we had limited resources, and we had a very short span of time. I had joined in September. We were launching in December, and the sales guy, my sales colleague, I was the marketing guy, a sales colleague, and a couple of other sales guys with him. And they said, we are operating in a market where Philips is the #1 brand because every Philips is a household name in India. No one, and Nokia was there in a very small way. They were doing something with All India Radio and something called radio paging. So that's a different FM paging. That's a different system. But basically our competitor was Philips. Motorola hadn't been launched then. And in fact, when I joined Motorola, a lot of my friends and family said, oh, so you're joining this oil company. I said, oil company? This is, in the early 90s, there used to be lots of these wall paintings in these villages of Motorola, which was a lubricant. And that was a very popular name. No, joining Motorola. So basically Motorola was an unknown name. paging was an unknown sort of thing. No one knew what the hell a pager was. There were no cell phones around at that time. And Philips had an 80% market share. Nokia had about a 5% market share. We had about a 15% market share in pre-launch bookings because we had to book with our paging service providers, just like the cellular service providers. You got Airtel and Jio and other folks. So globally, Motorola had a 80% market share in the paging business globally. So the guys in America said, hey, this 15% market share is not going to cut it. We've got to boost this up to at least 50%. Otherwise, man, we better not even launch in this market, or we better look at closing down shop. This is before we launch. So he said, okay, we've got to make some big bang sort of a thing. Paging was being launched in 27 cities. I said, you know what? We don't have the budget for doing a job in 27 cities. We've got a budget for doing a good job in 2 cities, max maybe 3 cities. So he said, why don't we call all the guys into Delhi? All the paging service companies, there were 10 of them. We'll call all of them to Delhi and we'll have a launch conference there. And we'll do a big dhamaka show over there. So the sales guy reluctantly sort of agreed. Then he got kind of charged up and then we did a lot of stuff. And we said, what we're going to do is we're going to spend all our budget for Delhi in 5 days. Not in 1 month, not in 3 months and all that, but in 5 days. So these guys said, well, are you really sure? And will it work? I said, I don't know if it will work or not, but if we are focused and if you agree with this plan and this thing looks good, we'll give it our best shot and see what happens. So we had organized a very slick launch conference and there was some dance show and the pages were being unveiled and all that. But more importantly than that, we ran ads in Hindustan Times and Times of India. At that time, it was basically print ads. That was the thing. For those 3 days that we had, the 3 days prior and 2 days of the conference. So those 5 days, they had 2/3 of a page ad. So that basically that page was dominated. And in some of those papers, we had a front page ad, Solus, on the bottom right-hand corner. Okay, so that was a fair amount of money. The second thing was we had basically money for 10 billboards, 10 hoardings in Delhi for 1 month. 10 hoardings, you won't even get seen. What is the point of that 10 hoardings? Then he got an idea. He told the agency, the hoarding guys, called the hoarding guys and said, okay, how many hoardings are there in Delhi? They said, gave some number. They said, okay, what we want to do, we want to get 100 hoardings. Is that possible? They were very excited. They said, yeah, 100 hoardings, that'd be really good. So we said, we've got a budget for 10 hoardings for a month. What we're going to do is, we're going to do 100 hoardings, but for 3 days. So that's 3 days. It takes 2 days to paint and then to erect and then, to pull it down. It takes another couple of days and then, it was all olden sort of stuff at that time. He said, no one will give it, at this thing. So I said, okay, you tell the hoarding. They said also no one hoarding contractor has 100 hoardings available. So I said, you go to 3 or 4 of them. You tell them if they do a good job here, then we'll see what we can do on a longer term basis and going forward, etc., etc. But I want 100 hoardings for 3 days, and we want proof that you take the photograph, this, that, and the other. So we did that, and what happened was that at the end of that conference, all the paging service providers went to the country manager and said, man, you guys, Motorola, are really the global leaders in paging and all that. We now realize all your technology and this and that and your US, this and that, and then you guys are serious about developing this market. And that day onwards, for the next week, the pre-booking market share changed to 80% Motorola, 10% Philips, and then 5% Nokia, and then 2-3% the balance people. Yeah. So that was a big bet that had been taken. So, it's all about, also again, it's about, what is that thing you want to focus on as an individual? What is it about something about work that excites you? What is it about you that is connecting with the job that you want to do? Why? Are you passionate about it? Are you able to think big? And then just focus. Never try to please everyone and tell your dad you'll become an engineer, and tell your mom you'll become a doctor, and tell yourself, actually, you know what? I want to be a painter. And I want to make a business out of that. Then you're trying to please everyone. Just focus on your painting and use your MBA to say, how can I make the best painting business in my area or in my country or in my geography or whatever. Yeah. So think about what you want to focus on and win big, because that's really important. You want to be that tree which will grow and flourish no matter where you are, whether it's winter, whether you're in a desert, whether it's wind is blowing at 300 miles an hour, that's no problem. Yeah. So let me just quickly gloss over this one, because I think we're also running into time. So while at Motorola, I was also heading then the global consumer market research for the business. And the normal business measure, market share, profit share, right? Just like now you look at COVID, you say, what are the overall cases? What are the overall deaths? But these are measures of what has already happened. You want to be clear of what is going to happen, what's going to drive change, what's going to make me more profitable. And that's where, while one was managing global consumer and insights and intelligence for Motorola, we developed a share of equity with consumers, retailers, and customers, and tried to get that model to say, if your share of equity is improving in the marketplace, your future market share is going to go up. Your future profit share is going to go up. But if currently the share is going up, but your equity is going down, that's a bad sign, because you're probably buying your future, and your future is going to be pretty bleak. Just like with COVID, what's more important is to manage distancing. Are you testing? Are you tracing? That's going to help. Overall cases, overall deaths, that's a statistic. That's already happened. But if I do these three things well and focus on the future, then I'm going to manage those COVID measures better. So that's just the analogy I'm giving about the share of equity, which may be sounding esoteric or theoretical, but it's basically using this COVID analogy. I hope it becomes quite simple to understand. So it's important, whatever you're doing, look into the future. Look at how things are being done today, and then saying, if I was running this business, if I was the sales manager for that company, and if I'm going to do this, what could I do different that's going to make a difference? What is my new approach, right? So that's another way to look at things. Then I moved to running my own venture for about 10 years, running and living. And when I was doing market research at Motorola, when I'd seen, people were really not so enthusiastic about their dreams and the future and this and that. When you talked to people of different age groups. But when you talk to a 5-year-old and said, what do you want to do? What is your dream? They would come back confidently. I want to build the biggest candy store in the world. I want to do a chocolate factory. I want to be a movie star. And they would say it with great confidence. So we built this venture, which is really about focus on getting you to be a 5-year-old again and unleashing your potential. And I had realized that, I'd gotten into running quite by accident while we were in Chicago with Motorola. And so I don't want to get into that, but it's important to check out where you have your passion. Because there will be many people who will be saying, hey, that's a bad idea. Wo kabhi nahi chalega. Yeah, don't you know that guy went bankrupt, etc., etc. Right? And they may be telling you for good reason. They are good friends of yours. But then you say, okay, why did that guy go bankrupt? How can I do something different and not just copy him because he used to be a successful guy, etc., etc. So if you have that passion in you, that's going to be critical to your success, and that will fuel creativity and innovation. So passion is really the fuel for innovation and creativity. That's what's going to make you think differently. And we were marketing running to marketers, and so I won't go into details, but one was meeting up with chief ministers of different states, police commissioners, chief secretaries, going to big brands, or meeting up with the chief of army staff and the Eastern Naval Command in Vizag when we were doing some runs, and talking to them all about running, team building, teamwork, this, that, and the other. And pitching to, I was a teeny-weeny startup, and Vinod knows we were really tiny. And we'd have meetings with the guys at Reebok or Adidas or Nike. And to the Nike guys, we had to say that, no, we do not want to associate with you. And let me tell you why. We were really keen to associate with Nike. But our brand and our platform was all about inclusiveness. So whether you were a 200 kilogram person who was wanting to run 5 kilometers for the first time, or whether you were an athlete and wanting to break the record for that 5 kilometers, we treated both of you as equal. We wanted because both of you are winners, both of you are pushing your limits. But Nike wanted to do stuff for the top 10%, because they said our brand is all about aspiration and performance and this and that. So we'll give the top 10% of your finishers, we'll give them a free t-shirt, and we won't charge you for it and all that sort of stuff. And that'll be a great thing. So I said, well, that sounds interesting, but I think our brand philosophies are totally different. So sorry for having wasted your time. We won't be interested in your free t-shirts unless you are willing to give it to all of them, because all these guys are heroes or heroines. All of them are doing something for the first time, or they're really pushing the boundaries. And so we had many discussions. The Nike guys would keep coming back to me and saying, but yeah, why aren't you taking these t-shirts? I said, unfortunately our brand philosophies are different. So let's keep it that way. And so then we did lots of stuff with Reebok and Adidas and Puma and other guys, and even with Bata. So it's important to know where you want to say no, where you draw the line that, this is what I'm about. I can stretch it this much, but I can't stretch it beyond that. Yeah. Then talking about my current job with Olam, we are a big trading company and a lot into the food-related businesses. So we are, but at a commodity level. But we're also looking at getting into some of these food products and say that, so how do you sample food in a COVID world? We had gotten lots of plans chalked out, and then we say, okay, 3 months down the line, all those plans had to be torn up. It's of no use. Why should a consumer trust you? I don't even trust an outsider now. How will I talk to and interact with someone about food? I don't want to talk to an outsider if he's not got a mask and he's not in a spacesuit. But then that looks more like a hospital, and this is not about food. So we've been going through a lot of rounds of trying to figure out what's the best way to sample food in today's world, right? How do you adapt? How do you get creative? And if you don't create or innovate, you might as well be dead. There's no point, because then, you'll be just watching the world go by and watching time go by and wonder what you're doing. So really, I'd like to end with a couple of slides saying, what can you do? I think these 2 years are really about, and not just these 2 years, these 2 years are really probably the start for keeping on learning, thinking big, be humble. you have a lot to learn apart from all your professors and teachers. You got a lot to learn from each other. And don't think my idea is better than your idea, and you don't know. I've had these experiences. But when you tell me about your experience, I say, wow, that's fantastic, and I'm sure I'll be able to learn a lot from that. Just make sure that it's not just these are not just words, but how do you get data? How do you say that this is the way to open that door? This is the way to be open-minded. This is the way to be like a sponge. This is your 2 years of being a sponge. Just soak it all in and experience all things. We all know why a Bihari is different from a Punjabi. My mom was a Punjabi. My dad was a Malayali. We all know what's different. We all know what's different between a Singaporean Chinese and a Singaporean Indian, or an American and a British guy. But what is similar? And how do you then target and look at these things that are similar across people, and consumer segmentation, or segment people, and how do you segment differently? That becomes really important, while understanding that these people are different, but they've got these similarities, right? Focus on your dreams. Focus on breaking barriers, because you will come across many different barriers. Look what's on the other side of that barrier. Don't focus on the barrier itself. Focus on what is beyond and say, man, I want to get there. I want to be in that balloon that's going to take me up and show me the whole world, and that's where I want to be. Not saying, this balloon, the gas itself is not lighting, what to do. That we'll figure out how to light that gas and to take that balloon up. But think beyond the barriers. And once you start thinking beyond the barriers, you'll definitely break those barriers. So in these 2 years, really have fun, pursue your hobbies, get passionate about something, persist on things, try different things, measure whatever you're learning and doing, and can you do it a better way, quicker way, different way, etc. How can you adapt and be creative and innovate and keep learning? Because these 2 years, you will learn more about COVID and the new world than anyone else on this planet. Believe me. You guys are bright, young, smart folks who are there about to launch in your what is really the apex of your academic career. But you continue to learn. And don't ever stop learning. Don't say, okay, now my MBA is over. Learning over, now I have to earn and focus on that. You keep learning. You stop learning, you're dead. Yeah. So I'd just like to end with one slide, which my mother gave me a poster when I was about 6 years old, and it was about a tree and a forest and a snowy path. But the words were exactly the same. It was, follow not where the path leads, but leave your own for others to follow. That's what I'd like to leave you guys with, and you'll find there are 2 or 3 different people who have said this, etc. But I mean, who said it is probably not important, but what they've said, I think, is so meaningful, and it's so simple. And you guys are really there to pioneer this at this time. So enough of my speaking. I'm sure that there are a few questions. I would love to take those questions. So let me just end this slideshow and let me get on to your questions. Okay. Let's have a look at some of the questions that are there. Okay, so someone asked, what's the difference between innovation and creativity? Both are quite similar. Creativity is more about imagination and thought, which is kind of a required element. Innovation is more about getting an entire system or a solution or a product or a service and doing something that has not yet been thought of and creating it. So I hope one has answered a bit of that. If we want to start a business in some country, if someone's doing the same business, then what should we focus on? The important thing is, if you want to start any business anywhere, you've got to make sure there are 2 things or 3 things that are critical. One is, are you really passionate about, or what makes you passionate about that particular business or that line? Secondly, what is the thing that you can bring to the table that is a little unique, right? Because if you're not bringing something that's unique to the table, then, not such a great idea. The third thing is, if you think you're bringing something unique to the table, is the consumer really wanting that, and are they willing to pay a premium for that? Or you say, okay, hey, I think that they will. Let me test it out. Let me try it out and test it out, and then you can do that. Yeah. Okay, let me just start from on top. Okay, I am keenly interested in music. How can I apply my interest in marketing? So you could look at marketing of music. I just met up 2 days ago with the Chief Marketing Officer of Spotify here in Singapore. He looks after Southeast Asia. Quite exciting. There's a lot of technology in every field. So Spotify also, so marketing is, you can say that I'm probably the old school of marketing, primarily the brick and mortar, the Unilever, Nestle, this and that and the other. But I consider myself a little bit more new age, but obviously not totally. Then there's the technology aspect. So, and marketing and technology are kind of converging, but the marketing guys generally know only a little bit about technology. The technology guys generally know a little bit only about marketing. So it's important to be able to synthesize your knowledge of both. So if you're a marketing person, make sure you're getting into all the technology related subjects, discussions, forums, etc. Also, don't say, hey, that is tech and I'm a marketing person. Okay, so technology is our life. Whether you're in marketing, whether you're in finance, whether you're in production, whether you're in anything, there's artificial intelligence and there's this, that, the other. There are 20,000 better ways to do things on some aspects. But where traditional marketing or the older school of marketing is going to help is you got to appeal to the heart. A human being appeals to a human being, and that connection is to the heart. That's very difficult yet for a computer or artificial intelligence to master, but I'm sure things will evolve at some stage. Where AI and all that sort of stuff comes in, it comes in at the brain. And you have fantastic architected solutions for making it like Spotify, or when you go onto a website and you click and you say, hey, I just clicked and now everything that I like is what is coming on the screen, and other people like you also bought this and this is what you did, and do you want to do this today, etc. And sometimes it can get irritating, but obviously then there are preferences. But it's important, if you're interested in music, you can apply it in your interest in marketing. But just remember that if you're anyone interested in marketing, anyone interested in finance or strategy or anything, make sure you're also taking a keen interest in everything related to technology. Yeah. So innovation work, the traditional approach or the medium? I'm not exactly sure what you mean by that. But I would just say innovation is, by definition, something that keeps changing. So if you're saying, is it the old way of doing innovation, or are you talking about innovation as the medium? I would say it's really the medium. Because innovation by definition has to be different from what it meant 10 years ago, or how it was done 10 years ago. It's now going to be reasonably different. Okay. Can you predict post-COVID results that would hamper human innovation? I think post-COVID and during COVID, one of the things that has happened is that every single human being on the planet in every single part of the world, every single age group has had time to introspect and realize that we are fragile, we are all in one small little planet and this and that and the other. And initially you say, oh shucks, I'm jacked, it's okay, it's going to lift after 3 weeks. Okay, let's wait, I'll wear a mask till then. Then you realize it's not going to lift in 3 weeks, and it's going to probably be an up and down cycle, and it's going to last for God knows a few years or 5 years, or maybe after COVID there'll be another something that'll come, some different bacteria which is being sprung out after 10 million years because of global warming. Now, different bacteria are coming up from the Arctic, etc., etc. So, is it going to hamper innovation, or is it going to fuel innovation? That really depends a lot on you as a human being. Some of us are a little more pessimistic by nature. For whatever reasons, we've had different experiences or this or that, everything is falling apart for me, and therefore I've become a little pessimistic with life. Some of us are a bit more optimistic for whatever reasons, right? So optimistic guys are definitely going to go out and want to change the world and fuel innovation. And those are the guys who've been fueling innovation always. You will never have a pessimist fueling innovation. No, so does COVID, get more people pessimistic? Yeah, there will be some for sure. Certain age groups will be much more pessimistic. People of our age group will say, what is this? Now I'm in the high risk category, this, that, and the other, what to do. But people at your age should be saying, man, thank God all these oldies will not be there, yeah? Thank God they'll be locked up at home. We'll have the jobs, we'll have this, that, and the other. We can create this solution, and this is a much better way of doing things. And thank God there's only solar vehicles and wind-powered, plants and all that sort of stuff. And to heck with all this coal and other sorts of thermal power plants that we have. So I'm not sure what's going to win, but I think, the human spirit is amazing. You just saw those photographs when I put up about those trees in different places. And, nature is amazing, and we are all part of nature. So I think you can definitely see a good sort of forecast for innovation. Being a freshman, we don't have any ideas about the corporate world. So how do we get into the system and get through? So just remember that everyone who's spoken to you at this forum and ever will, every one of your parents, etc., were all freshmen at one point in time, right? They all did amazing things, and some more than others. But for each of them, they came from different backgrounds and they managed to do amazing stuff. I think what's important is you've got to have that confidence in yourself. Never say that, oh, this guy is from that institute, yeah, that's why they are so brainy and this and that. Or that guy is so senior and that guy is, chief of army staff, so I can't talk to him. And that one is a chief minister. They're all human beings. Everyone is a human being. Just look at it from that lens. Don't start worrying about, hey, that guy's got a salary 6 times of mine, and or that guy's driving this car and I'm going by bus, or that guy is living there, or all that is not relevant at all. What's important is what you have here, and what you have in your hand. And that's what you're getting at FOSTIIMA. That's what you're getting from your friends. That's what you're getting other stuff on there. So then there are lots of questions about OLAM and can we get a job there after this, after FOSTIIMA, etc. I'd say OLAM is still a commodity trading company. And if you are in the bent of mind of being a commodity trader or have any agricultural background, have any significant risk-taking abilities in yourself, and you're fired up about something that is entrepreneurial, but being done on a large scale, then I would say OLAM is a good place to be in. But OLAM normally does not take freshers in, right? So there are some companies who want to have some people with a certain amount of work experience, etc., because they're quite lean and etc. So OLAM may not necessarily be a good first choice. So the first choice I would say is, you focus on really what you're wanting to do. And maybe you're really interested in trading. and you say, okay, this is the kind of company I could join, whether it's financial trading or okay, financial trading doesn't interest me. I'm more interested in these types of commodities, etc. And there will be definitely some other commodity trading companies who will want to grab up bright people like yourselves, straight out of the institute. So definitely, don't get disheartened if there are a couple of companies who say that, we don't hire fresh people, but we'd love to hire you after you've had 3 or 4 years of experience in so-and-so line, etc., etc. Because actually, once you get into that line, you may say, hey, I'm not interested in this line. I'm actually interested in some other line. So that's also the other thing of looking at it. And if any of you have work experience, then it'll be good for you to share with others. But maybe you guys don't have work experience and you're all coming fresh out of your graduate programs, and that's great, because you'll have even more energy than lots of other folks here. So I have studied mass media, and I'm also interested in merchandising and advertising. So how should I plan and set a goal? So that'd be important to see where your interest lies. Is it more in the media area, or when you're talking about merchandising, is it from a garment perspective, or some other merchandising, or is it product and trade merchandising? I'm not sure. And advertising. So, or you're looking at something that may actually combine all these three, because you've got experience in all these three areas and you're actually interested in all three. And there may be some media houses, some ad companies, some other creative shops who may be interested in this kind of profile that you've got. So it's good to see what are the types of companies, but don't necessarily go by what happened last year, because last year is all cancelled, right? Next year and the year after next is like a fresh start. You'll have fresh sort of opportunities. So just keep your eyes and ears open as to what are the new things that are coming up. There's some new startup. Okay, funding for this particular sector is going up. Or just keep your ears tuned. Or there's my friend who's got this really interesting startup and it sounds pretty cool. Let me see if I can join up with him or her and become his or her marketing colleague, etc. So look at startups also, because that's really where the excitement is. And that's where you can contribute significantly, and you can have fun along the way. Yeah. Let's see if there are any others. How can I use my creativity of writing and teaching in marketing? Marketing is a lot about communication. It's a lot about creativity. There's a lot of copywriting. If you're teaching also, I think that's a fantastic combination. If you're creative and you're also into writing and interested in marketing, maybe being a copywriter at an ad agency or getting into content creation on a social channel, and you obviously must be having your own YouTube or Instagram or other sorts of channels, and you could see. Maybe you have you're part of some groups, and you can plug into different sorts of networks apart from your FOSTIIMA network, which is going to be critical, because when you have your 240 of you and 100 of you are in the hostel, you can, the amount of learning you'll get from each other, even if you're not physically in the same place in your first semester, if your first semester happens to be all distance, in some ways you say, there's so much you can learn out of this. So all these questions will be so much better answered by some of your fellow students as you go along and interact with them. I've got an interest in marketing and also have an idea to start my startup regarding tech, but I am from commerce field. What can I do for pursuing my startup on tech? Which field you're from and all that doesn't matter. What's important really more is, Are you passionate about it? What do you know about it? Have you got an idea? If you may be passionate about that field, but you don't know enough, get a partner who knows a lot about that field, and you can make him more passionate about that because you got this idea. And so it's about collaboration. It's no longer about, I have to have this structure of 50 people in my company and all 50 will report to me and I'm the boss. Now you say, hey, I'm the one person and we are a collaborative thing. There's one friend of mine who's a tech expert, one friend of mine who's a social media expert, one friend of mine who's a finance whiz, who will tell me, Rahul, your ideas are all stupid, they'll never make money. There's one friend who's a marketing guy, etc. And you say, that's my organization, right? And those are the people I will learn from. And then I will put together my business plan and then show it to my FOSTIIMA profs, and they'll say, yeah, this is a good idea. Why don't you focus more on this, less on this? And you've got so many resources available to you. And I'm going to repeat myself again, just put together whatever idea you have, but don't lock it down just now because things are changing. Now you say how that idea will change and morph, and at the end of 2 years, you say, wow, there's a totally new dimension to the same idea, all because of COVID and what's been happening around that. And now I think I can definitely get more funding for this idea because it's linked around this consumer trend and this thing and what's happening in the rest of the world. So just, keep yourself constantly tuned into what's happening in the rest of the world. And like I said, again, you'll learn so much in these next 2 years. It'll be great. How to know which field is perfect for us, which field will bloom after the pandemic gets over. Which field is perfect for you is a combination of two things, right? It's dependent on what you are passionate about and what's happening. So where does that connectivity happen? But one of the things I had mentioned earlier is that because of this pandemic, there's a lot of focus that some people more than others are going to have on climate action, climate change, clean energy, green energy, lower wastage, zero plastic, reducing pollution, going from waste to energy, waste management, doing things to improve farmer productivity, reducing poverty. All these things can become big businesses. Reducing poverty can become a really big business. It sounds kind of crazy, but yeah, there's a lot that can be done and there's a lot that can happen. With this reverse migration of migrants, you could have potentially lots of things happening in the 600,000 villages of India, which were never possible before. But I've spent 10 years in the city. Now I've gone back to my village in Bihar, and I'm saying, this is where I'm going to be. I don't want to be kicked out of the city because of demonetization. I don't want to be kicked out again because I'm a migrant and there's COVID, etc. I think staying at home is fine. But I think I can have a Uber system with all the tractors and all that. My little plot of land is just 1/4 of an acre. That's not going to be worth it. But now I can do this, and okay, tractor is not worth it, but I can do things with other implements. So there are lots of things that can start happening, which we never thought was possible just 4 months ago. We wanted those things to happen, but we said that you are an idealist. Nothing is going to happen like that. World is going to continue the way it is. Right? So it's important to understand what you are charged up about. Then you'll know one part of what makes a perfect field for you. The other part is to say, what are the things that are happening in the rest of the world and outside and how things are changing. And then say, is that also something of interest to me? Maybe it is. Then that becomes a little bit more perfect. There is no such thing as a perfect world. If you ask all the people on the planet, do you have a perfect husband? Or do you have a perfect wife? I think you'll get a couple of answers out of 8 billion saying yes. We have to make it perfect. We have to make it better. And a lot of it is really dependent on us ourselves. Yeah, can someone just see if I've missed out on any other questions? How do you see working in India different from working in Singapore? Mainly the work ethics and the experience.
Hi, Rahul, you're on a great trip. We have time for one more question.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So just one last one. So I've worked in Singapore and then in maybe 6-7 different cities in India, which actually in hindsight are totally different cultures. Delhi is totally different from Bombay, Pune, Bangalore, Hyderabad, Chennai, Calcutta. These are some of the places I worked in. But Singapore is different, and so is Chicago and the US, quite different. Each of them have their pluses. Each of them have their minuses. Singapore is great because it's very organized and comfortable and people are efficient and diligent and all that sort of stuff. But if the power by any chance goes off over here, there'll be chaos. And no one will know what the heck to do, right? In India, power, okay, fine, a generator will come on, inverter here, I'll get my car is stopped, okay, I'll get the jump charge from my neighbor, something or the other. You'll figure out a way to make things work, right? So you are equipped for the rest of the world. Singapore is good for a head office sort of culture. Air conditioner should be running, things should be good, etc., etc. Singapore is not the best place for an entrepreneurial existence. It's too comfortable for that. For entrepreneurial existence, you need a little bit of chaos and excitement and tension and all that, which happens in so many other places in India. So I'll leave it at that. Yeah.
Okay, Rahul, thank you. I'll take a few more minutes to wind this up. I'd like to thank you twice, actually, and I'll tell you why. One, of course, I'd like to thank you for speaking to us and sharing your experience. And of course, a lot of our students look up to you, especially since, as per their and our standards, you've had a dream career. You've been with MNCs, the pick of the things like Hindustan Unilever and Nestle's, but also you shared with us behind the scenes in terms of what goes into it, and things like and you made us aware of the need for creativity and innovation right down from day one. And creativity is not just required in fashion, perhaps that's the class I took some time back, but it's required even in animal feed. Because there are targets, there are relationships, there are other things. You said a lot, so I cannot really say everything, but these are the things which cross my mind. One, that there is a lot of change is accelerating. It's always been there, so we don't have to be frightened about it, but we can, like those plants and pictures you showed, we can thrive. And the key to that is adapting to your environment. This is the key to it. And an important part of this key is really creativity and innovation. And it doesn't come by getting up one day and say, oh, today I'll be creative, but it is a way of life. It is a way of looking at things. It is the perspective that it gives you. And you can develop, all of us have the ability to create and to be innovative, and we have to find that and sort of bring that out. Some of the other things that you said, that you have to be keep dreaming, because these dreams sort of pick on your creativity and innovation. And all along, I think you have been talking about passion and how passion can ignite. And in fact, I'd like to share the second thanks because of that, how passion can ignite. And the second thank is really related to this, and it is to my own relationship with you. Rahul is much younger than me, as you can probably see through our faces, but he's actually...
You look much younger, yeah.
No, well, but he's at least 10 or 11 years younger to me, but I met him 10 years back. I never knew him before at IMA, of course, there's a wide gap, but I met him 10 years back, and at that time I was 58 years old, and I thought this is the end. People retire in India at the age of 60 or used to. And at 58, I went to him and he had left Motorola. Imagine, big MNC. I still have a Motorola phone, by the way. So it's very much there.
Great.
Yeah. And I went to him and I told him I want to run. And instead of he hitting his head and saying, "You want to run? What's your age?" He said, "Yes, of course. Running and living. Join our running and living." And I started running with him. And after that, I haven't looked back in 10 years. I think within 1 month, I ran my first 10 kilometers. Within 3 months, I ran my first half marathon, which is 21 kilometers in Chandigarh. And within 1 year, I ran my first full marathon, 42 kilometers I remember with running and living in December in Gurgaon. And the following year, I ran my first ultra marathon over 50 kilometers in Bangalore. And I've been running since then. In fact, last January this year, just about 4 or 5 months back, I ran 50 kilometers in one of the races here in Gurgaon. So I would like to challenge you to a race when you are next in Delhi. I think I'm getting better, and hopefully I can challenge you now.
I'll be on a motorcycle.
You'll be on a motorcycle. Okay. So life is, I like that smile of yours. And I think it gives the message that life is about excitement and it never ends until it ends. And I'm on a high, you're on a high, and I think the others, all of the rest of us can be on a high as well. Thank you for once again coming and igniting me personally 10 years back. And thank you for igniting our students at FOSTIIMA today.
Thank you for igniting me with this talk here, because it did, these things just do something to me also. So thanks a lot for that, and thanks for this opportunity to talk to so many bright people.
Right. So all of you students have to stay back and finish with the polling process that we do after every talk. So please spend 3-4 minutes and sort of complete this before you